Hey everyone, it's Boston Blaisdale here. Thanks for tuning in to this Second Life University video. Today we are looking at how Second Life is transforming the look and feel of your virtual world by introducing PBR Materials. PBR refers to physically based rendering, and we'll be getting into what this means in a practical sense. But in very basic terms, it means that we're going to be seeing a lot more depth, realism, shininess, and reflections in the Second Life world. In this video, I'm going to show you how to easily start creating and applying PBR materials. We'll be jumping between the 3D modeling tool Blender, the texturing tool Adobe Substance Painter, and of course the Second Life Viewer itself. I'll demonstrate a basic workflow for kitting out a virtual home with some different pieces of furniture and some of the key things you need to know to get up and running with PBR. This video is suitable both for creators and residents, whether you're feeling inspired to create something yourself or just to enjoy other people's creations when you're exploring Second Life. So let's get into it. Alright, so I'm currently on the beta grid where testing for PBR materials is well underway. I've just created a little space here for building some furniture and creating some different materials. Over here in Blender, I have a 3D model of a furniture piece. Most of the things that we see in the Second Life virtual world are mesh objects, which have been created using 3D modeling tools. Blender is a popular tool for creators in Second Life due to how comprehensive it is for the 3D pipeline. And one of the best things about it is that it's open source and free to use. So with our coffee table model, we want to add textures to this and bring it to life. There's two main sections here that I want to apply textures to. Firstly, the main structure of the coffee table, including the legs, and secondly, the glass piece in the middle. We could do the texturing part in Blender, or we could use a more specialist tool, which is what we're going to do by moving this across to Adobe Substance Painter. To do that, firstly, I'm going to export this as a collada file using the DAE file extension. This is the file type that's used for exchanging the data of our model between interactive 3D applications. I'm saving this in a folder that I've created especially for my raw collada files. And now we can open up Adobe Substance Painter. We can think of Substance Painter as the Photoshop of the 3D world. You will need a paid subscription to use this, but you can combine it with other Adobe products. To ensure that our file is PBR enabled with Second Life, we need to create a template first. So click File and New to open up your project settings. Under Template, you can either select PBR Metallic Roughness Alpha Test with starter assets in brackets, or this other template that's here, which is for Alpha Blend. Then select the model that we created in Blender. This is the DAE file, which we saved in our folder. Verify the following settings: a document resolution of 1024, change the normal map format to OpenGL, and for compute tangents per fragment, click Yes. Also under display settings, we want to change tone mapping function to ACES. Applying textures from Substance Painter is remarkably straightforward. Here I'm just using one of the smart textures on the left-hand side, which come included with your subscription, and you just drag and drop the texture on the part of the model that you need. This will appear in your Layers panel, where you can stack and modify them in a similar way to how it works in Photoshop. You can also get very creative with painting and shading, but for our purpose, we're keeping it simple with these smart textures. Now for the export, firstly go to File, click Export Textures, choose the output directory. I usually make a separate folder for each texture export and just name it appropriately, for example with the type of texture. The output template that we want to use is GLTF PBR Metal Roughness. Size is based on each texture set size, and for padding we want to choose dilation and default background color with a dilation of 16 pixels. When we hit export, it's going to create a GLTF and GLB file, which we can then import into Second Life. We'll also have the separate texture files in PNG format, which includes the UV maps for base color, normal, emissive, and metallic roughness map textures. We'll dive into some of what this means when we import it into Second Life. Let's jump over to the Second Life viewer. We have our mesh coffee table from Blender and our texture materials from Substance Painter. We now want to bring it all into Second Life. Let's start with the table. Go to Build, Upload, and Model. Choose the DAE file which we saved from Blender. This opens up our upload tool, and we can see a preview of our model in the window. The level of detail and complexity is provided to us in this area. This will give us an indication of how complex the model is going to be. The higher number of triangles and vertices, the more resources it will consume in Second Life. So always aim to keep that as low as possible when you're building in Blender. Choose which level of detail you would like. Hit the Calculate Weights and Fee button. This is going to generate a bunch of data, including the upload fee and land impact. And if we're happy with this, hit Upload. Our mesh object will now appear in our inventory. Let's res it in World by dragging and dropping from our Objects folder onto the land. The next thing we need to do is upload our PBR Material textures, which we created in Substance Painter, and apply them to the model. To do this, click Build, Upload, and we have this new option here named Material. Once that's open, we can go to the Export folder which we created. In here we have the GLB and GLTF files. The GLB format is a binary container format of GLTF that includes the base color, normal, emissive, and metallic roughness map textures, instead of referencing them as external images. So I'm going to select the GLB file. Because we have separate materials for our model, we're going to hit the drop-down menu to select Bulk Upload All, and then hit OK. Confirm the cost of upload, and click OK. This will upload the material objects and all of the corresponding textures. To understand what has just happened, let's go to our recent tab in our inventory. Under the Materials folder, I have the material objects for our mesh parts. I'm going to open up this main material by right-clicking and Open. We can see the composition of this material. If I click on the base color tile, for example, it's going to point to the base color texture. And the same for the other tiles here as well. We don't need to change any of these because the import of our GLB file did all of the work for us by mapping everything automatically. So there's a relationship between the material objects and the 4 texture maps. It's very easy to drag and drop the material onto our object, but first I'll show you how to apply it using a different method, just so we can highlight a couple of common issues that you may notice. So right-click the object and Edit. Go to the Texture tab, then change the drop-down menu to PBR. Click Choose from Inventory. Select the material that we need. And now it's applied it to our coffee table. Now here we can see some transparency with the material that shouldn't be there. To fix this, just right-click the material again and click Edit PBR Material. This will go straight to the material composition box. And here we just need to change the alpha mode from blend to opaque, and that will remove the transparency. For the section in the middle, we want to import a different material to show the glass. So right-click and edit the object. Click Select Face. Click the part that we want to apply the material to. And then we can either drag and drop the material onto the section, or click Choose from Inventory and select the correct uploaded material. For this particular part, we don't want it to be opaque like the rest of the table. So I'm just going to select the face, edit selected, and change the alpha mode to blend. And now we have the same textures applied as what we saw in Adobe Substance Painter. I'm going to show you how to modify the properties of the PBR material itself. We've added the same PBR material texture to this prim sphere, which I created by using the build menu and then applying a polished chrome material. Over here, the metallic and roughness factor will help determine the shininess of the texture. Decreasing the roughness will create more of a mirror effect, and the value range is from 0 to 1.0. In comparison, the metallic factor determines how metal-like the material is. So for something like fabric, we would expect that to be completely non-metallic with a value of 0 versus copper, which will be closer to a value of 1. In the PBR menu, we can also modify other attributes, including the tint and transparency. If you're not a creator designing your own 3D models in Blender, you can of course purchase items such as furniture in Second Life, whether that's in-world or on the marketplace. This sofa is by the specialist designer Fancy Decor. With this, I can just apply my own PBR material textures if I want to customize it with my own look. With anything that you're customizing yourself, you will need to make sure that the owner has created the item with modifiable permissions. It should always state that on the advert. On the Second Life marketplace, you can actually use a filter to only show results with modifiable components, which makes it a bit quicker if you're searching for things, and you want to only display results for things that you can personalize. Now, in order for the reflections to be at optimal performance, a new type of volume has been created, which are named reflection probes. These are actually automatically placed in world. However, manual placement of these probes will help with different scenes such as homes. So let's look at how the reflection of the room appears without any manual probes. We can see that there's some incorrect artifacts showing here, such as the sky, which is actually outside of the building even though we're inside. So we can correct this by creating our own manual reflection probe for this room. So to do that, start with a basic prim, go to the build menu, go to the features tab, and at the bottom here we can tick reflection probe. By checking reflection probe, it automatically makes the prim 100% transparent and phantom. We don't want to apply any material or texture to this, and we're choosing a box shape for this reflection probe. Now we're going to resize this to the shape of the room. You can do that by using the stretch option, and then dragging the coordinate boxes to stretch out the sides. So the trick here is that we want the edges of the reflection probe to be just outside of the walls so that it reflects everything inside of it. Always aim for the fewest amount of probes to fill the largest space, and make sure that they're configured as modify to allow repositioning by the user. And now if we look at the reflection of our sphere, we can see that it's more accurately depicting the reflections in the room. So in this video, we looked at how to create PBR textures using Substance Painter, how to apply those textures both to models that have been produced in Blender and also products purchased on the marketplace. We also covered some of what you need to know about manually adding reflection probes to spaces in order to optimize reflections. You can expect to see some more instructional content on the topic of PBR as it's rolled out across the platform. Notes will be added to the description of the video, including a link to the Wiki page covering more detail of what we looked at today. Hope that was useful, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.